And Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity for sitting with us and fielding questions. There are quite a lot. It's been about 59 days since you have been in the office of the President. First of all, Commander-in-Chief, President, but you hold another very important job. You're a father of a little one. How have you been able to straddle fatherhood and the demands of the presidency at the same time?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's an interesting question as the opener. Let me say sometimes, and I say it's interesting because sometimes people forget that component of your life.
True.
But it has been very difficult 59 days in the sense that there is so much to be done in the national interest, and there was so much happening within those 59 days. Sitting in the seat of the presidency, there are things that you can control, there are things that are outside of your control, but you have to address it all. So it has been a new lesson in time management. I've definitely not gotten to spend the type of time I would like to spend, but I think that is understood under the circumstances that we are in. And we have been basically focused on settling the government, ensuring that we move rapidly on some of the low-hanging fruits and bringing relief to people, improving their standing, economic standing, and creating opportunities. Because, with COVID-19, which has compounded the problem, there is a lot of strain, economic and social strain that exists in the society that, if not addressed, can balloon very easily. So we have to work on ensuring there is that balance in pushing programs forward and opening up economic opportunities and job creation and so on. So all of this has affected time management because they're unplanned events. But I would say I've been managing it fairly well, and with good support, good teamwork, we have been able to achieve much in those 50, how many days?
59.
59
if my
days.
math is correct. All right. We saw the police's statement yesterday saying that the members of the CARICOM Impacts team
Yes.
are here in Guyana. What are you expecting from this investigation, given that there are already some issues? We don't have a crime scene. The police has its own job cut out,
Yeah.
even as it arrests several people, and they've not been able to get anywhere. What do you expect now that that team is here? And sir, I've not seen your MOU. Are you planning to make that public?
Well, I will not get into the discussion, the investigation itself.
I know.
But initially there was some constraints in getting quickly to the moving towards detailed investigation in a very quick manner because of the protests and what was taking place on the roads and so on. Notwithstanding that, I made a commitment that all the tools available, all the resources available must be utilized in bringing the perpetrators of these crimes to justice. So this team from the region, they are here to support the Guyana Police Force, technical support, investigative support, evidence gathering support. For a matter of fact, we also have a team that has left to St. Lucia with some of the evidence to do more detailed analysis. So that is going on at the same time. Now, for confidentiality reasons, the regional body has asked to have certain things respected from their perspective, and we are sticking to that. There are components of the MOU definitely that can be made public, like what the detailed engagement and so on. And at some time, I'm sure the police in their total report would make all of this available to the public.
Is there any cost attached to having them here and anything?
Some support costs, yes. There is some support costs attached to having them here, but the cost is a small issue in relation to what we're hoping to achieve, and that is bringing these people to justice.
All right. Dennis.
Mr. President, quickly on the matter of infrastructural development, I know your government has been talking a lot about hotels, and recently you went to visit the new site for the Damara Harbor Bridge. What are the business models for these projects? Is it build, own, operate? Is it a public-private sector partnership?
Well,
Especially for the
it's a
bridge?
variety of models we're using to come up with the best suitable model. Now, for example, in my inauguration speech, I spoke about the involvement of the private sector, partnering with the private sector. So you will see, for example, with Gaisuku, we have published an expression of interest for partnership in the various estates. We also, in the Borbis River Bridge ad, there is various models. A bill finance, a design, bill, finance, operate, transfer, design, bill, finance, design and bill alone. So when all of these proposals come, and of course a company can submit more than one option, option 1, option 2, option 3. So it gives you really a wider platform to ensure that you get the best possible option for the Guyanese people.
And where will the money be coming from to build a bridge?
All of that is in the modeling because, for example, it can come from loan, it can come from the self-financing. That is why it's design, finance, build, operate, transfer. And of course, there are many agencies. Since I came into office, there are many agencies, whether it's capital venture firms, international agency, bilateral agency. Only yesterday, I had a meeting with the Canadian High Commissioner, and they have a special fund, investment and development fund with the partner, with private sector and with the government, that has low-cost financing available for massive transformational projects. So there are many companies, many developers who have access to these different funds, so they can come up with these funds in their model. And then, of course, there is always the possibility of having it financed through loan. But if you may allow me just one
Yes,
moment
sir.
to expand on this. So what we want to create is a framework. So very early investors, our local private sector, all Guyanese must be aware as to where the country is heading, what are the areas that will be opened up, what are the opportunities that will be created in these areas that will be opened up. Take, for example, Region 3. The population is growing on Region 3. We need to expand housing. We need to open up new areas for our agricultural production, new industrial areas. So one of the things we're looking at is to have a new four-lane highway from the bridge all the way to Porica. That will open up the new lands that is required, create a new area of growth and stimulation of wealth and economy. Then we're looking at the development of the implementation of a Wales Development Authority that would incorporate persons who would have lost their jobs, and also young businesses, new businesses that want to go into a development zone that will have special treatment and special incentives in terms of job creation. Then if you go to Borbis in Region 6, we are looking at opening up new lands there. I think it is the number 52, one of the new farm to market access roads that we're opening up there. Same thing for the Linden Soesdijk Highway. The new four-lane highway, phase 1, is going from Ogle all the way to Eccles. That would continue in phase 2 and 3 all the way to the Tumiri International Airport, opening up new sets of land. That, of course, would give us the opportunity to do a new type of urban planning. So right now we are engaging technicians and international experts on waterfront development, because the waterfront would change. You have to have a waterfront development plan. This new type of urbanization and growth, the new growth areas, the new growth poles, how best we can get the optimum value out of those lands, what type of industries can be created along the new part of the highway. That is another one of the priorities now. So we can get all of these things early into the system, so there's great clarity as to where we are going, what will be done where, how it will be done, what are the opportunities. And then, of course, our human resource plan. We have started to match what the future demand of skills and skill set will be. And you know, we have a campaign promise of 20,000 scholarships. We have started to work with many universities. I know discussions are going on right now with many universities in ensuring that we can fulfill this very early and fulfill it very early to meet the economic, to meet what the economic output would be in terms of matching economic output with skills development and training.
If I can follow up on that, where does the free education, free university education falls into?
It fits into the whole set, right? So, so over the 5 years, we're going to move into all of these commitment. I don't want to say promises, commitment. But I assure you that we will be fulfilling that too.
Like how soon? Like Guyanese want to know how
Well,
soon.
I would not, we are not putting everything in the set, right? Then we have to look at the revenue flows. This is a COVID affected year, right? We have to look at revenue flow. So we may say, we may have a phased implementation starting from faculties, or you may have one implementation. That has to be set out based on when we have on a thorough analysis, when we finish putting the development projections and so on in the frame. Once we complete that frame, then the timelines will be announced.
Does this mean a subvention, a hefty subvention for the university itself?
There's different models. To achieve free education may not necessarily mean a heavy subvention.
Okay.
Globally now, you're moving away from bricks and mortar, and all the international universities are moving away from that. It is first ensuring that we put the technological, create the technological advances and infrastructure that is needed at the university to help to achieve this goal, right? Like for example, many of the mainstream universities have open campuses. Now, look, University of the West Indies have a UE open campus, right? So these are some of the things that has to be done, building that infrastructure also as we move towards implementation.
Quickly, Mr. President, with respect to the oil resources, do you plan to front load the oil revenues to fast track Guyana's development? And secondly, can you say whether Guyana's gold declaration is actually a true reflection of the production, because we're hearing of gold being smuggled from Venezuela to Guyana to be sold? And thirdly, why aren't you talking with the opposition in keeping with your pre-swearing promise to speak with the opposition without conditions?
No, I never said without conditions. I said I'm open to, let me start from that question, because I never said without conditions. I said I'm open to working with every single Guyanese. Now, if I'm working with you, Dennis, you have to be able to accept that I am the person you want to work with. So there are a number of things going on. If you look at some of the statements that the opposition is making, and then the opposition leader is saying that he doesn't recognize the government. So you can't speak with someone you don't recognize. If you're coming to talk to me and you're telling me you don't recognize me, what are you coming to tell me? That you don't recognize me? So you can't have a serious discussion with me if you don't recognize me, because you're speaking to someone you don't recognize. So you have to get it right. So, and I hope he gets it right very soon. Because if you come to me, you can't come to me to tell me you don't recognize me. And if you're coming to me, it means you recognize me. So the opposition leader has to make up his mind and make that very public. But you have a president who's open. I am very open to all Guyanese. That's the first thing. The second thing is gold.
Gold, in terms of the declarations, are they a true reflection of Guyana's production in light of smuggling from Venezuela?
As you're aware, I can't pronounce on that issue right now, because there is an ongoing analysis that is being done at the Gold Board. We have a new board. There's no board right now. We are working by the end of this week. Hopefully we can have a board in place there, the Guyana Gold Board. And then I'll have a report, comprehensive report, and then I can come back to you on that. So at the moment, that is what is going on there. And the third question was
front-loading of
front-loading. Okay, so now, as you're seeing, most of the development that we are talking about now, it has a lot to do with mobilizing private capital. It has nothing to do with going into the oil fund or anything. It is about mobilizing private capital, whether it's international, whether it is regional, or whether it is local. And that is the approach we're taking right now. For example, to achieve the housing program in a time frame, the 5-year, we need to have an investment of about $500 million US to get the houses built, to put in infrastructure, to open up the new land. So one of the models that I've been thinking about, I've been looking at the Trinidad model. I've been looking at many of the developing countries' model, and one of it is to explore maybe the open market, to see what type of resources is out there on the open market and at what rate, what rate, because the cost of capital is very important. And there's a lot of concessional rates out there now because there's some amount of liquidity in the international market. Secondly, we have a very big diaspora. If you look at the model Indians and other countries use in developing a diaspora investment fund, a DIF, it might be able to raise some amount of substantial capital. Now, we have not done the assessment of that market as yet, but that is another area that I'm looking at in terms of the portfolio of option that is available in raising capital to achieve these objectives. So that is another area that can be explored also, that will be explored. That is in the menu of measures that I'm looking at.
But what are the pros and cons of front loading? It's your money as well as the country's revenue from oil.
I'm not saying there's any pros or cons. I'm saying there are many options. So we can set up the option and then we also have, before we talk about utilizing resources from the oil and gas, we have to talk about setting up the Petroleum Commission. We have to talk about approving and legislating the Sovereign Wealth Fund, right? All of these things has to be done institutionally before we even think about that. But we have to push ahead with the work, so we have to look at every available option on the table.
And where are you on the Petroleum Commission?
Well, 59 days, we have been going through so much. We have been reviewing the Payara license. It's not like we're 59 days away from the elections 5 years from now. So the Payara license, we've been reviewing that. We have the local content, the committee that we've established to look at local content. Today I'm hoping to have a discussion with the committee to look at gas to shore, and then of course we have to look at the policy framework, policy committee that would look at the policy framework and so on. We have to look at the legislation, and then when we put all of these things together, get the legislation in place, get the fund in place and so on, then we move towards the commission.
If I can follow up on two quick things. One, my colleague's question and something you just mentioned. You've been accused of ignoring the advice on the Payara agreement to secure better, you could have secure better.
What's that advice?
Their advice, the public, not advice given to you as president, but comments made by people like Melinda Jackie.
I don't ignore anything. I've not received any advice. I've seen public statements, but
have you taken any of those into consideration?
I'm reading everything. I'm absorbing everything. We have appointed expert to review. That review is ongoing. There are some concerns that everybody has been talking about in the public. One, environment, the flaring, right? The fine for environment, the cost of flaring, that is the natural gas that is used for flaring, the cost of that, revenue loss from that, the water treatment, the injection of the water treatment. These are the key issues when it comes to Payara. These are the key issues. I have asked that these issues be addressed, and when that report comes, then I will see to what extent they have been addressed.
Do you think you would be able to hold the company accountable in that agreement, given
the
poor negotiation that you've cited in the past?
Once they have signed on, remember we have not gone to contract reviews yet. This Payara is totally different from contract review, right? And then we have not even come up with the committee has not come up with a report for local content as yet. All of this is separate and aside issue that we have to pursue. The gas to shore, which is important for us in terms of building out capacity downstream, upstream, and reducing the cost of energy and so on. So all of this still has to take place, but whatever comes out and whatever is agreed on by the parties, they will be held to it.
Mr. President, how do you, what are your thoughts on ensuring there is greater broad-based national acceptability of a voters list that everyone can see? Yes, it is really a reflection of what the
Voters list?
Voters list.
your thoughts on that going into the next election, whether local or national?
Well, we are far away, Dennis, but you know we said, first of all, before you get the voter list, a voters list, you have to have a system that the population have trust in. You can't have a system where there's very little trust in that system. And the trust in the secretariat at CARICOM has been eroded significantly. So first of all, we have to fix that system there. We have to fix the secretariat there. And as political parties and as a country, we have to fix that. Because anyhow, that is a system that would give you the end product. That is a system that will be in charge of giving your voters list. That is a system that will be in charge of doing the registration to give your voters list. So we can't talk about voters list without talking about fixing the system. That is why we said we have to get an international COI to go in there independently, bringing to us and highlighting to us what occurred, where the weaknesses are, and where the holes were.
Isn't that overreaching though, Mr.
It is not
President?
overreaching. It is not. We have to fix it. It can never be overreaching when you want to protect democracy and the will of the people.
But you are a partisan beneficiary of that very system.
I am not a beneficiary.
No, I'm talking about
No,
your
let me
your
just
government.
let me just make this very clear. This government is not a beneficiary of any system. This government is a beneficiary of the will of the people. This government is here because the will of the people spoke. This government is here because the people elected this government. We're not the beneficiary of a system. And I want to, let us take that off the agenda. We're not a beneficiary of the system. We want the system to be fixed because the system tried. The system tried to take away the will of the people. The system tried to derail democracy. The system tried and tested our collective conviction to democracy. The system destroyed Guyana's credibility internationally. That is what the system did. And that is why we have to fix the
Mr.
system.
President, with the COI, how do you intend to cross what is enshrined in the Constitution? That is the independence of GCOM.
Exactly.
I'm not talking about the personalities, I'm talking about what the Constitution says. How do you intend to cross that?
This has nothing to do with the independence of GCOM. This is a COI that goes there to look at what took place. This is an independent COI. No, not only on election day or in the elections. It has to look at everything that took place. The world wants to know what took place.
But since that independent
The region
will have to take the recommendations
Of
or
whatever
not take
body.
the recommendations.
Yeah.
No, the COI will bring out its recommendation. Those recommendations, we have to do reforms in fixing the system. And this has to be done, as you know, all stakeholders will have to agree. But at least it is not the president who will be going and do the COI. It's an independent analysis. So if the system has to be fixed, the system has to be informed as to what the weaknesses are. The system has to be informed as to what contributed to the breaking down of the system. And that is what the COI helps you to do.
The proposed commission, your proposed commission, there have been talks about whether or not it is an action aimed at preempting the elections petition. How do you respond to that? And can you tell us,
I didn't get that.
preempting the elections petition that has been filed, and how soon do you see this commission being in place?
Well, the COI has nothing to do with the actions filed. The judiciary will deal with that. That's a separate arm of government. There is no relationship. We said from day one that any party, that is a democratic right. That is a democratic right. There is no linkage. The COI can't influence the judiciary. The COI can't influence the judiciary. Just like all the international organizations who spoke out on the elections, the judiciary is a separate arm. They went to the judiciary with an election petition as democracy allows, and that is another issue. And I'm not going to get into that issue. That issue is already in the
But
judiciary.
Mr. President, in an environment where the two major parties are not talking, how do you see the recommendations of the COI being implemented at the end of the day?
I don't know how you frame that question like that, because as I said earlier, you have one party who...
Well, it is in that context that I feel
No. The other party that you spoke about, well, I don't know if it's two parties alone, because I see today Patterson resigned. I read
As
that?
General Secretary.
As General Secretary. I read somewhere too that is something, disagreement, they had an agreement on the Vice Chair at Region 4. Is that correct? You
I
read
don't
the
know
same
what you
thing?
read. I don't know what you
Okay,
read.
so it seems as even within APNU
So
they're
how
not,
are we gonna cross-
they're not talking with each other. So if we can't cross the hurdle in that party, you know, but let me say this. It's very easy. Very simple. He has to fix what he has created, a misleading narrative to the people of this country. This is a legitimately elected government. This is a legitimately elected government. I leave it there.
Is the non-recognition the only yardstick you're going to use for not?
No,
looking at
that's
this
not the only.
inclusionary
There's
clause?
many things, but I'm just giving you one example here, right? You can't come to tell me what you talk if you don't recognize me. You can't come to tell me you don't recognize me. You can't bring anything beneficial to me because you don't recognize where I'm sitting. Why we don't want to address that? But anyhow, let's move on. I have another assignment, so we
Quickly,
gotta. Yeah.
repeatedly over the years dating back, I think it's about 1992 or so,
Mhm.
all of the observer missions have made one
Several
consistent
recommendations.
recommendation. Among those, campaign
Depoliticizing.
financing.
We-
Will you be
It is in
having-
our manifesto.
How soon?
It is in our manifesto. You know, sometimes, Dennis, everything is how soon. We're in 59 days. We have 5 years. We have 5 years. We can't do everything in 59 days. We have 5 years. But I'm saying to you that those commitments in the manifesto will be realized. We are going to ensure that all our commitments in the manifesto are realized. That I can assure you.
Do you have a list of prerequisites for meeting with the opposition? If you take non-recognition.
No,
off the table.
I'm not taking that off the table. I am
Is-
not. Mr. Harmon must be honest enough to correct the wrongs he would have done in that narrative and go out to the public and say the PPP has been legitimately elected and it is a recognized government of Guyana, and then we talk.
My
That-
final question.
Thank
Is
you
it
very
a
much.
non-recognition that?
No, that's not.
Hold up. There are a number of state boards. I've noticed that particular party has not been nominated to any of the state
But
boards.
how
Is
co-
that non-recognition the
How,
reason for?
how can you
leaving
sit
them off?
on a government board when you don't recognize the government? You wouldn't recognize any of the decisions that board make. You know, it's a simple thing. If I don't recognize you as a company, how would I sit on your board of directors? The other parties are involved. The private sector is involved. Civil society is involved. So, Harmon, get it right. Thank you very much.